Welcome back, everybody, to the Carlette Christmas Show. This morning, we're joined by someone who is no stranger to Central Louisiana and to our state. He is attorney Malcolm Larvadain. He and his family have almost close to 100 years of practicing and advocacy in our state. And Malcolm himself has well over 2 decades of experience. Well, he joins us this morning to talk about something that sadly, none of us wants to be in an accident, but if we are, what we need to do and who we need to call. We need to call the name, and that is Malcolm Larvadain. Malcolm, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Miss Christmas. How are you doing today?
I'm grateful. Congratulations on the new nuptials.
Thank you.
Let's start with that first.
Thank you. I hopped the broom.
Indeed. And so you and your family have been attorneys in this community and in this state really for almost, well, we said maybe 90 years, but
It's about 90 years. I think Dad did it for 50, and Eddie and I were roughly about 20 years each.
wow.
So, yeah.
And so it have helped a lot of people when we look at all of the advertisements on television. Sometimes it can be hard, and that's why we wanted to have this conversation, because when you and your family have been trusted with people's lives for so long, it's important that people choose an attorney that can be trusted and that is at home and connected to their interests. But when we talk about wrecks, what is the first thing that people need to know
Well,
after they've been in an accident?
Well, if you're in a wreck, do your best to take pictures.
Really?
Yes. A lot of times people aren't able to remember certain facts and circumstances surrounding the incident, and pictures can help do that. Also work on getting the name of the person who hit you. Call law enforcement so that an accident report can be generated, and then give me a call.
Absolutely. Now, here's one thing that a lot of people may or may not be aware of: how to insure yourself in case you're hit by someone who is not insured.
Well, the law requires a 15, 30, 25 policy. That first 15 is $15,000, and that's the most one person can receive. The second number, 30, that's $30,000. That's the most that's paid out per accident. And the last 25, that's $25,000 for property damage. A lot of folks get this misconception that if you get full coverage, that includes uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage, and that's a misconception. The underinsured motorist policy, that's an add-on. So that's something that you have to ask for, and that's just in case the person who hit you has no insurance or doesn't have enough insurance. The law requires a $15,000 policy. That can go really quickly if you are really hurt and you end up going to the emergency room. I got this case I handled for a gentleman on Sturks Road. He was on a bicycle. And
He was on a bicycle?
On a bicycle, and he was hit, broke a bone in his leg, needed a surgery, and his medical expenses were easily over $200,000.
Really?
But the person who hit him only had a $15,000 policy. Now, typically people don't end up with broken bones in your average car wreck, but you can be hurt bad.
Right.
And if you are really hurt bad, that $15,000 can go real quickly.
And so in a case like that, he's a pedestrian, really.
Yes.
And someone is probably distracted and hits him. But they don't have enough to cover his injuries.
No.
What happens in that case?
Well, in a case like that, the insurance company will tender the $15,000, and if we decide to go after that person beyond that insurance coverage, that individual has the right to file for bankruptcy protection.
So now your hands are really tied. So your
yes.
injuries are there, but there's not enough money. So tell people, especially people who own vehicles, about how to understand that add-on of uninsured motorist or underinsured.
Yeah, that's correct. Uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage. Speak to your insurance agent. Let them know that you want uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage. You want to make sure that you have enough coverage if the person who injures you does not have enough insurance to cover you. And just call your agent, and they will gladly give you a quote, and it's not that expensive.
And, State Farm agent Rosa Fields talks about this all the time, that when an accident happens, to this gentleman's point who has all of these medical bills, he's really just left.
We're really nothing, because right now I'm in the process of trying to negotiate with the medical providers to get them to reduce their bills significantly.
Wow.
And hopefully I can put something in his pocket, but it's not looking good.
But just because the person who hit him was underinsured.
That's correct.
And so when you look at accidents and people that get hurt, after an accident happens, do people need to go directly to the hospital?
Some do, some don't. Sometimes when adrenaline is pumping, you don't feel any pain. But if you are on a wreck and you feel some type of discomfort of any sort, any nature, go get some treatment. Let someone take a look at you. You never know what could be wrong with you. So, or if the following day after the adrenaline has run off and you're now sore, you might want to get some treatment.
Right. And so for a lot of people that don't feel that they've been injured, but then time elapses, is that an issue? I've waited 3 months before I've done anything.
Well, it could be a problem. And I tell people, if you are injured, please tell the doctor what part of your body ails you. If your ankle hurts, tell the doctor. If your back hurts, tell the doctor. If it's your lower back, middle back, upper back, neck, please tell the doctor that that's where you're feeling pain, because those medical records could possibly be scrutinized to determine whether or not you receive, they'll be used to determine how much compensation you receive for your injuries. So tell the doctors where you hurt.
Absolutely. And so for those people that want to try to say, I'm just going to negotiate with the insurance company on my own, what do you say to those people?
Well, I hope you're not injured. And you're really helping the insurance company out when you do that, because you're getting them off the hook. What you think is a good amount may not be a good amount. They prefer to deal with people who are unrepresented, because you do not know the ins and outs of the business. So, of course, it's like taking candy from a baby.
Wow. And so it's really important to note that if you've been in an accident and you think that you have an injury, call an attorney to start the conversation so that you're not having the conversation yourself with the insurance company.
And I also want to point out that people have a 1-year period to file a claim.
Okay.
So that's very, very important for folks to know. I tell people all the time who are a little soft on it, I'm like, well, just give it some time. But remember, you have 1 year from the date of the accident to make a claim.
Absolutely. We're going to take a quick break here, but when we come back, we'll talk about what it costs you and how to choose an attorney right here in your own city that has a trusted record of handling all sorts of cases and will handle yours and get you what you deserve if you've been hurt. Stay with us. We're back right after this. Welcome back, everybody, to the Carlette Christmas Show. Our guest this morning is attorney Malcolm Larvadain, and this morning we're talking about car accidents, and sadly they are happening more and more. Well, what to do if you've been in an accident? The first thing is to call attorney Malcolm Larvadain. And you were talking during the break about an accident where a young lady had been T-boned.
Yeah, she was called in the driver's side, at a fairly decent rate of speed. It was a really hard impact. The person who struck her had a $50,000 policy. That's a decent policy. However, the young lady didn't have any insurance coverage, no health care, like health care.
Oh, health care.
And her medical bills were about $25,000. And when it came time to selling the case, the insurance company, the health insurance, the hospital, they wanted their money, and they took a big chunk out of it. Fortunately, she had uninsured motorist coverage, so that allowed us to get some more money for her. But an uninsured motorist is very, very important, and I can't stress it enough. It's not that expensive. I think a couple of dollars a month.
Right, like dollars.
Dollars is not, it's not that expensive.
So tell people, one of the things that people may not know is, do I have to pay a lawyer when I call you?
For a car wreck, no. Most of the time, the matters are handled on a contingency fee basis. So if there's a recovery, there's a fee. If there's no recovery, there's no fee.
Right. And so for people who are riding around, let's say, with no insurance at all.
Please don't do that.
Please don't do it. It's against the law, but it is happening.
It's happening, and unfortunately, in Louisiana, we have something known as no pay, no play. So for individuals who are uninsured or have no insurance, and they are involved in the accident due to the negligence of another party, the uninsured party waives their first $15,000 worth of recovery.
Really?
Yes. So let's say, for instance, a person is injured in an 18-wheel accident case, and those 18-wheelers have a lot of coverage. Well, the first $15,000 worth of recovery is waived.
So I get nothing if I have no insurance.
For the first
15,000.
For the first 15. So let's say your case is worth, a claim is worth $150,000. Well, the first $15,000 you wouldn't get. So you would just get the remaining $135,000.
Wow.
And in most instances, most claims are under 15 at or slightly above or at $15,000. So most individuals who are uninsured walk away with nothing.
Wow. So people often want to know, because you see all of the ads and it's hard to really trust that. How do you figure out what your particular case is going to be worth?
Well, now, before we get to that, I want folks to realize when you see those commercials going back and forth, you pay for that. So when you sign up with one of those guys, they're going to quickly sign you up, get you treated, and get you out the door, because they have to pay for all that glitzy advertisement. And in many instances, those type of operations don't get people fairly compensated. It's quick.
Wow.
It's a quick turnaround process. So keep that in mind when you go to those firms who aren't from here, or you're dealing with people who really don't know you.
And so why do you think that people don't get fairly compensated in those instances?
Well, understand that advertisement is expensive. I mean, when you're seeing commercial back to back to back to back, they're having to pay for that.
Right.
And at the end, the client covers that cost.
Indeed. And what I really like about having, and I've said this about local and doing business with people that are local, you're there to take people's calls and their concerns through the process.
Yes.
And a lot of those ads that we're seeing, you never even talk to those people, those attorneys.
You're dealing with lawyers who really aren't from the area. You're dealing with lawyers who do not know the judges. Really, a lot of those firms are taking those cases just to settle them.
Just to settle them.
Just to settle them. And they're not thinking about trying a case if it comes to that. I try cases.
And so in what instances do cases go to trial?
Well, a lot of times if liability could be disputed, it goes to trial. But in many instances, liability is undisputed. These larger firms just get what they think is a good amount, and then they push a cheap settlement on the client.
Wow.
And it happens because, like I said, if you watch the news today, you'll see 100+ commercials, seems like. And that stuff has to be paid for.
Right. And so this morning's conversation is about people who may find themselves in an accident, and you don't want the glitz and glam. And many of us are sold on that. You see the big checks, you see all.
Yes.
But it's important to note that these are actors.
Yes. In many instances, when you see those people and they're showing you this big amount, it's not the person who actually got injured. And if it is the person who actually got injured, keep in mind that person was really hurt. And a lot of times I question whether or not they were adequately compensated.
Wow. And so how do you work to make sure that every case that you get, your clients are adequately compensated?
You talk to your client. You take the phone calls personally. You return the phone calls. You talk to them.
Absolutely. And there is nothing worse than to have an accident, get a check, and a year later
Yes.
or 6 months later, you're still having the same issue.
And it's also important not to be in a rush to resolve the case and get the money. You need to, a case matures on its own. And you don't want to rush the process. When you rush the process, you're typically leaving money on the table.
Wow. And so for those people that say, you know what, I need to speak to you, I need the name, how do people connect with you?
They can call me at 318-445-3533 or email me at larvadain.bellsouth.net.
One more time.
318-445-3533, or I can be emailed at larvadain@bellsouth.net.
There you go. Attorney Malcolm Larvadain. You know the name, Malcolm Larvadain. Stay with us. We're back right after this.
Yeah.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Carlette Christmas Show. You know, we like to do these shows and have these conversations because so many people get in accidents and really don't get what they deserve when they are hurt. Here to talk about the process and what we all need to understand is attorney Malcolm Larvadain. He's been practicing since 1999, and his family have been pillars in the legal community and in the community for almost 100 years. So let's talk about people that get hurt and they're out of work.
Yes.
And they have no income coming in.
Okay.
That in itself would kind of make people say, I need to.
Makes them desperate.
Right.
Makes them desperate. And so I encourage people, if you can get it, to get disability insurance to help you ride it out. Because keep in mind, insurance companies know when you're desperate, and they will take advantage of it. Hopefully you have money saved to withstand it. There are ways to, there's some lending institutions that will help a client out. But just understand that insurance company is in it to do one thing: sell the claim as cheaply as possible.
Wow, and that's why it's so important to have an attorney that you trust, that is in your community and has been in your community, because you're not going anyplace. We see all these lawyers, but they don't live in many of them in our communities.
No, they don't. And you're dealing with people and lawyers who are not from this area. And in many instances, those law firms take the case with the intention of not going to trial. It's to quickly settle and wrap it up. I have no problem going to court.
And so if a trial goes to court, what is the advantage of going to court versus settling?
Well, in many instances, you can get more. Your case could be worth more if you go to court. But there's some little nuances to all of that, and I just want to stress, you can't always be in a hurry to go before a judge or a jury because there could be some problems with your case. But keep in mind, there are those instances when you do need to take it to trial. And when those instances present themselves, you need to have a law firm or an attorney who isn't afraid to do that.
Absolutely. So talk about, Malcolm, the process of you really listening to the client. When a client is saying, you know what, I'm hurt. I'm not ready to settle the case because I am hurt.
I tell my clients, listen to the doctor. Tell the doctor what's ailing you, where you're hurting. Listen to the doctor, follow the doctor's recommendations. I would never get in front of what a doctor's saying. The doctor drives the train as it pertains to the client recovering. And just be there to listen and to offer counsel when needed. When a person is recovering, the doctor is the one who's in charge.
Absolutely.
And in many instances, it just takes time for people to heal.
Right.
And you just can't be in a rush to wrap up a case just because a claim may take an extra 2-3 months to wrap up.
And we're seeing all of these accidents every single day, sometimes multiple accidents, right here in the traffic circle.
Yeah.
In the South,
drivers.
Distracted drivers.
Cell phones. Yeah.
Right. And so the first thing that a person does After they've had an accident, of course, we call the police.
Call the police.
And then after we call the police, what
Take
would be
some pictures of the crime, of the accident scene, get the information, of the name of the person who hit you. Try to photograph the vehicles so that we can memorialize the damage. Also, take a picture of the debris field if you can do that. And the debris field is where all the remaining parts that come off a car in the case of during an accident. And give me a call.
Absolutely. And how can people call you?
People can reach me at 318-445-3533. Again, 318-445-3533. Or you can email me at larvadain@bellsouth.net.
And so when they come in to consult with you, there's no cost for that.
There's no cost. There's no cost.
And so you just look at all the information and you kind of just tell them where they can go from that point.
Yes. Personal injury claims are handled on a contingency fee basis.
Which
that
means
if there's recovery, there's a fee. If there's no recovery, there's no fee. So typically, I do not charge a person to consult for a personal injury claim.
Indeed. So listen, if you or someone in your family has been hurt in an accident and you don't want to deal with people that you don't know, people that you're not comfortable with, that are not going to be there with you through the process, make sure that you remember the name, and that is Attorney Malcolm Larvadain. Attorney Larvadain, thank you so much for all that you're doing in our community, all that your family has done and will continue to do. And these conversations are important because people need to understand their rights.
Yes, people do. A lot of folks just don't know. And when you don't know, you can find yourself in a very unfortunate situation. But I thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here, to be heard, and to have a conversation with you.
Indeed, indeed. Hey, everybody, stay with us. We're back right after this.